Thank you for reaching out on Twitter as well, and well done for all the work you've been doing over the August recess to make sure that young people have a conduit to keep in touch. I think it's been a very difficult time, hasn't it, with lockdown, with the restrictions that are taking place, particularly here in Oldham, to feel as though you're still maintaining those social connections that are really important. So thank you for the work that the Trust has been doing in contribution to that. For those who don't know me, I'm Jim McMahon. I'm the MP for Oldham West and Royton. So my constituency covers Chadderton, Royton, and Oldham West, which is Hollingwood, Werneth, Medlock Vale, and Coldhurst. So if you live on the west side of Oldham, Chadderton, or Royton, then I'll be your MP. In Parliament, I sit on the Shadow Cabinet, so the Labour Shadow Cabinet, as the Shadow Secretary of State for Transport. Aside from that, I also chair the Cooperative Party parliamentary group as well, which is a sister party to the Labour Party. But the reason I got involved in politics is because I want to make a contribution to the town that I live in, where my children are growing up and where hopefully I'll spend the rest of my life. I'm not blind to the issues that our town has and how much hard work is needed to put it right, but I really believe in the power of people and in the quality of our community. And I think when we pull together, when we work together, there's almost nothing that we can't achieve. And I think that's the challenge now, and it's a challenge going forward about how do you unite, work together, and help improve the town that we all care about.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant, and I think you've got some really good points in there about why you got into politics, and that's something that can really empower our young people, and it's something that I know a lot of them are passionate about, and we will build onto that later because I've got a few questions for yourself, but I like to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves as well. So, Arbaz, if you want to introduce yourself and why you joined the program.
Hi, my name's Arbaz, and I joined NCS because it gives you a chance to meet new people and to make new friends. We chose to raise awareness for homelessness in Oldham because we feel as though it's a large humanitarian issue and it needs to be solved.
Thank you very much for that, Arbaz. Daisy, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself and NCS?
Yeah, we joined NCS because we wanted to make a change in our local area, no matter the size of this change. We chose to raise awareness to the homeless because there's no escaping it. We are faced with this issue every time we leave our homes. Moreover, this makes our ability to speak our minds and have an independent voice, and that is the most important part of the NCS programme.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Daisy. Yeah, I think, as you said, it's given the young people of Oldham the opportunity to have that voice and have their say in what changes we can make. Hope, do you have anything that you'd like to add on from that?
I'm Hope, and I joined the NCS program because I was told it's a great and enlightening experience where you can use your time to help the other community. And we chose to raise awareness for homelessness in Oldham as it's been a constant problem for years, but it's extremely important and we wanted to help the issue.
Thank you for that, Hope. Yeah, some really good points. So, Kieran, would you like to mention anything?
Yeah, my name's Kieran and I joined NCS because I wanted to help give something back to the people of Oldham who aren't as lucky as I am. So, yeah,
brilliant, thank you. Short and sweet. Michael, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Michael. I joined NCS to try and help people who need it in their day-to-day lives. We as a group decided to raise awareness for homeless in Oldham, as given the pandemic, they're the most vulnerable, and they're people just like us who are neglected by society by no fault of their own. NCS allows us to speak out and try to help those poor individuals.
Thank you for that, Michael. And lastly, Tanika, would you like to add anything?
I joined NCS to learn more about our community and how I could support it. As NCS, we believe homelessness is a preventable issue, and we are therefore trying to raise awareness for it so we can support our members in our community.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Tanika. Some very good points and very well done for introducing yourselves. Jim, do you happen to have any questions that you might want to ask before we move on and just tell you a little bit more about our programme and move on to a few questions that the young people have got for you?
Yeah, I mean, if I start off by addressing the kind of the headline issue of homelessness, because I think it's something that we all care about, but actually quite a lot of it is hidden. What we see on the streets, whether it's rough sleeping, whether it's begging, is the tip of the iceberg when you look at just how big the problem is. And I think it's important to separate out the different characteristics of what homelessness is versus some of the myths. So it's a matter of fact that not every beggar on the street will be homeless. You can have somebody who has a home, who has somewhere to live, but who is on the street asking for money or playing a musical instrument to get a donation or whatever. And so we need to separate out those who are very visible on the street, who may have a home, to those who are homeless in the round. And the reason why I think that's important is that a lot of the homelessness that we see isn't seen at all. It's people who are kicked out of their house if they have an argument with their parents or with a partner. They're sofa surfing, so they're staying with friends or family. But actually, what we're seeing even more of, because of the housing crisis that we've got, are families, whole families, who are being forced out. Now, some of that's because of the weakness of the private rented sector, where people have very little protection, where they're evicted with very short notice. Some of it's about changes to the welfare system, where they're just not able to get enough money to pay the rent and the bills, and as a result, they get evicted and lose their home. But there are thousands of people in that situation across Greater Manchester, and the impact that has is significant and profound, particularly for our children. And so if you think about the stability that you need as a young person to give you that kind of grounding to grow and develop and be confident and to be educated at school, well, actually, for many people, that is denied them at a very young age. Now, whether that's because you're staying on the sofa with the rest of your family in the living room at a relative's house or a friend's house, whether it's that you haven't got anywhere quiet to do homework and revision, or even during lockdown, where you just haven't got a room even to do the online teaching that is available from some schools, all those issues matter. And that's before you get onto the stress. The financial pressure does put a huge emotional pressure, relationship pressure on every family. And so, the likelihood of family breakup, domestic violence, and the rest of it all adds to that destabilizing nature of homelessness. And so we need to make sure that we root out homelessness wherever it is, and that goes beyond the people that we see on the street. I think it's also very important that we have long-term policies in place for this. It's not good enough, frankly, during COVID, just to block book all the hotels in the area for what is essentially going to be a few months. When the COVID crisis is out of the way, those people go back to the streets or back to sleeping on a friend's sofa. We need to make sure that we actually provide the housing for people to live in. But I would say this, my experience of homelessness, going to the local shelters, going to the local food bank and speaking directly to people who are affected, is that actually the roof over their head is part of the problem, but it's only a part of what is a bigger problem. And generally, you'll see other issues, whether it's financial stress, whether it's about a relationship breaking up, whether it's about abuse at home and people trying to escape the threat that brings, whether it's about mental health issues, whether it's about drug or alcohol addiction. And so I think if you are going to address it, it's not just about providing a roof over somebody's head. You've got to make sure that they get tailored support that addresses the underlying issues that they've got to help them be successful individuals. And I think that's actually where government is missing completely, where we just haven't seen the investment. So just last year, we had 462 young people presenting as homeless. Just we got nearly 500 people just in a town like Oldham who are saying they're homeless, just of our young population. But even when you extend it further, the numbers get even more shocking. And so there are 21,000 people just in Oldham who are on the housing waiting list, who, to be honest, many of them have no prospect of getting a home because we're not building social housing anywhere near quick enough. The waiting list grows and grows and grows as demand grows. And ultimately, people can sit on the waiting list for many years, bidding for many properties, but actually never getting over the line and being able to secure somewhere safe to live. And so I think, it's very complicated, but actually some of this is about leadership. It's about resources, and it's about making sure that we pay up front, because if we don't pay up front, ultimately, we will all pay the price as a society and be weaker for it.
Yeah, I think that's you touched on some fantastic points there, and that's probably made us realise a bit more is that this isn't an issue that we can fix overnight, and it's something that there's a lot of different components to, which is something that maybe as a team we should discuss, as well as just raising awareness, touching on the different points which you've mentioned, because it's such a broad issue, and that's not something that we always realise. So thank you very much for educating us on that. There's definitely some points that we just haven't considered. So thank you for your knowledge on that, and for sharing it with us. Just to tell us a bit more, tell you a bit more about what we've been doing. So as a group, we joined together last Monday, and through that we did a various range of different team building exercises, just to get to know each other. We've done all of this online, and we had hoped to join in person this week, but with the announcement last week, we decided to carry on the program online. So from that, we've been working to raise awareness and tackle the issue of homelessness in Oldham. And to do that, we've been creating posters, and we created a podcast yesterday just to highlight the issues that we face, and to raise points on a few concerns. We've been doing a lot of work with trying to raise awareness for the campaign, which is run by Shelter, which I've just shared on the screen now, which is to ask the Prime Minister Boris Johnson to build more social housing and really invest in it. So there's 10,000 people which are supporting. We need 10,000 people to support this campaign to win. They're currently on 8,069. Now that's something that our young people who's on the programme today have been working towards, trying to share that awareness and trying to increase the number of sign-ups. And in addition to this, they've wrote letters to the local MPs in Oldham, like yourself, but they've just got a few questions that they'd like to ask now. Now, I will warn you, they do start off quite nice and quite friendly, and there's a few really interesting icebreaker questions, which you can see on the screen now. So these are all questions that they've come up with. Arbaz, do you want to read out the icebreaker questions for me, please?
Have you met the Queen?
No, I haven't. I would have loved to have met the Queen. I had the honour in 2015 of being given an OBE, and so I was invited down to the palace, and I was queuing up with excitement, because you're not told until you actually go into the hall who's going to give the award. And so we're desperately hoping it was going to be the Queen. You know, she's such a inspirational human being. The things that she has witnessed, the leadership that she's given during her tenure, I think has been outstanding. And actually, when you think about how crazy politics can be, you know, whether it's about the uncertainty around Brexit, whether it's a number of elections that we've had in recent years, whether it's about kind of social movements that are gaining momentum, actually the Queen has provided a real, I think, sense of stability to the country through some of our most difficult times. Anyway, it wasn't the Queen on the day, so I wasn't so disappointed. But it was I have met Prince Charles, who gave the award on the day.
What's your favourite movie?
I'm probably a bit kind of old school for me. Well, it would definitely be old school for the audience on the screen, but for me, Back to the Future trilogy is my kind of must dive into box set.
What are your hobbies?
Well, I mean, if I'm honest, I don't get a lot of free time. My hobbies is generally trolling social media to find out what on earth's going on in the country. But actually, yeah, you know, quite a lot of kind of politics, I suppose. It's not a job. It's almost a vocation. It's a calling. It's something that you feel compelled to get involved in and to take action on. And so, to be honest, like 24/7, there is always something to be kind of intrigued by, to get involved in, to take action on. To be honest, at the moment, we are absolutely inundated with people who need support around COVID, whether that's about the uncertainty about the current local restrictions, whether it's about the pending return to school and what that means for young people, or whether it's about the kind of fragile economy and how many people are facing unemployment in the constituency. It's been extremely busy. I must admit, though, I do really enjoy just going out for a walk. So taking my son out, taking the dog out, going for a walk with my partner, just getting that kind of fresh air to reset your mind and to kind of come back refreshed, I think is important.
Why do you represent Labour?
So I believe in the power of people, but more importantly, the power of what we can achieve when we work together. I think individual responsibility is really important, but I think there's something about collective action. When people rise up together, when people take on a fight together, when people fight for better conditions, whether it's about the workplace, better housing, better public services, a better quality of life. I think we do that better when we all pull together. So that's why I'm Labour, because I believe the power of the collective is really important.
And the last one, what's your favourite holiday getaway?
So my heritage, I suppose, is Irish, so we love getting away to Ireland. There's a few towns on the coast of Galway where you could be in the middle of nowhere near the Atlantic Sea with a fresh air, with a really bad telephone signal, so you can't be bothered by text messages, where you just feel completely at peace. So yeah, I definitely feel an emotional connection to Ireland, and whenever I go, if I'm honest, it feels like going home.
That's brilliant. Thank you for your answers there. Unfortunately for yourself, they were the easy ones. So I'm going to pass you on to Kieran, and he's going to hit you with the slightly harder ones. So Kieran, if you want to take away the following questions for me, please.
I can't actually see the screen with a question.
Okay. Michael, are you okay to do that? Can you see the screen?
Cheers.
Yes.
Okay. Michael, do you want to ask away then?
All right. Most homeless people have dogs as a social support and companion when they've been abandoned. How does this impact their potential for rehousing and accommodation?
Well, I think there's something very special about the British culture and our relationship with animals. We are an animal-loving nation, whether it's dogs or cats or whatever. I don't know if you probably can't hear, but my own dog is snoring away, and I can tell you she's very much part of our family. She isn't an object. She's not an item. She is part of our family. So I fully understand how people get connected. And I suppose if you're homeless, particularly if you're a rough sleeper, when you're homeless, that can be a very intimidating and lonely experience. And having a companion that offers safety and companionship in that context, I think, is really important. And that's a bond that can't be broken when you're eventually given the support to be settled in a home. So I think we can do far more to allow hostels to take in dogs. I think we can do far more to make sure that supported accommodation takes in dogs. And I mean, there was a campaign probably about 18 months ago on this issue about making sure that accommodation would allow dogs to go in. And it was a campaign that I was keen to support.
All right. How has COVID impacted the homeless?
I think it's done it in a few ways. If I'm honest, at the moment, it feels as though the homeless, as in rough sleepers, so the people who were on the streets, not the people who are sofa surfing with friends and family. Many rough sleepers are probably given more support today than they would in usual circumstance. So the government have given money temporarily to basically book up all these hotels that are empty because the tourists aren't coming during the virus with the quarantine restrictions that are in place. Those hotels are being booked up, homeless people are being housed, but it's only a temporary provision. In a month or two, we fully expect that provision will end and people will go back to the streets. I also think that when they're set in an address that we can go to, it's easier to give them one-to-one support. It's much harder if you need to track people down in a town or city centre to find out where they are. When they're in stable accommodation, of course, you can do one-to-one visits and make sure they've got the emotional, the mental health support, the financial support that they need. I also, though, think we should not underestimate that there is a homeless community. So it's not the case in many places, towns and cities, that you just have individual homeless people. They themselves form a community where they support each other. I think it's really important that when we think about housing people and rehousing people, or even in temporary accommodation, that we make sure that those who have kind of built up a bond and a friendship can maintain that as they're moved into accommodation. I have heard one or two stories of people who say, actually, I was given a home, but without any emotional support in the middle of nowhere. And so my emotional support were my friends on the street that I got to know over a year. And so I was given a home, but actually what I wanted to do was to get that emotional support. And so I went back on the street because that's where my family was. And so I think that bit of it is really important.
What are your day-to-day duties?
So it changes. At the moment, Parliament is in recess, which means that my days are all in Oldham. At the moment, we're doing most of it working from home. My staff are working from home. But if I'm doing like a TV interview or a radio interview where sound quality, video quality is really important, and then I'll use the office in Oldham to do that. And at the moment, it's mainly casework. So casework is the individual support that we give to people when they have a problem. Now that can be a very localized problem, like antisocial behaviour, a housing problem, or it could be a government issue like financial support, or business support, or home office immigration support, or issues with the health service, or the return to school next week. On Tuesday next week, Parliament returns. And so my duties as the Shadow Transport Secretary will be about making sure that we deal with the aviation crisis, where tens of thousands of jobs are at risk. That we deal with a safe return to work. As people get back to work, we need to make sure that our public transport system can get them there safely. But we also need to make sure that our regions are supported as well. So another responsibility I have is on regional economies and making sure that, like the Northwest, that if there is a recession or at worst a depression, that communities like ours in Oldham get the financial support they need to rebuild and be resilient. And so quite a lot of my time in parliamentary debates will be on that front.
What legislation is in place for the homeless as we move into the winter months?
So not too long ago, there was a change to housing legislation that put on a responsibility to local councils to provide housing. The problem with that is it didn't come with anywhere near enough money to actually pay for the housing that homeless people needed. And so there is a campaign to try and get the support that's currently in place for COVID to continue into winter, to make sure that actually, even if we're out of the worst for COVID in, say, October or November, I don't think we will do, but there's a possibility we will, that homeless people aren't sent back onto the street in what will be the coldest time of the year. And so we are on with making those points, and we're working together with the local council, with the Mayor of Greater Manchester, to make sure that those representations are made to government.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you for asking the questions, Michael. We just got one last set of just to go through just 4 more questions. Daisy, am I okay asking you to read through the last 4, if that's okay?
Sorry, I'm back.
Okay, do you just want to ask the last 4 questions that we have, please?
I don't know.
Okay, don't worry. Can anyone see the screen that would like to ask the questions?
I found the screen, that's fine.
Okay, go on then.
Are you aware of any charity shelter? Are you aware of the charity shelter? So what are your opinions?
Yeah, so I had a member of staff in London actually who worked for Shelter before he came to work for me. And actually my first meeting with him was when he worked for Shelter and he came into Parliament in London to give MPs a briefing on the work that they were doing on homelessness. They're also a huge campaigning organisation, so we'll regularly receive lobbies. So lobbies for MPs are kind of emails that will come in on a single issue that then we kind of respond to then en masse. So Shelter are quite good at organising those campaigns. They're also actually very good at data, so the evidence base that supports the campaigns that they're leading on. So yeah, in Parliament, I think they have a very good reputation.
Will you sign the petition to ask the PM to build social housing?
So as a general rule, I don't sign petitions at all if they're petitions that will go to Parliament. And the reason for that is if you're going to submit a petition to Parliament, you're essentially submitting a petition to yourself if you're an MP. Because it's about
extra work, isn't
it? The subject that's been raised. But I can say that if the debate comes up in Parliament and it's most likely to be a Westminster Hall debate, then I'll certainly make sure that I put myself down to speak in the debate.
What are your opinions on Captain Tom?
Oh, you mean Sir Captain Tom, who actually did meet the Queen?
Yeah.
Not that I'm jealous or anything like that. Well, I mean, I've got a number of views actually that are slightly conflicting. I think the first view I
mean,
have,
you can meet it too if you walk a few miles.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, yeah. Social distance, of course, of our Oldham lockdown at the moment. Maybe I'll get her on Zoom at some point. Yeah, a number of views on Captain Tom. I think the first one is, to be honest, we are the sixth wealthiest country in the world. We have a publicly funded National Health Service that is so underfunded that it relies on people basically volunteering to fundraise. And it strikes me that given the wealth of the country, that we should be funding our health service properly. We shouldn't need people to fundraise for our health service at all. It should be paid through taxation and it should be paid fairly. And the people who work in it, whether they're in the hospital or in the care homes, should be paid a decent wage for the work that they do. But clearly, there are issues with how we fund the NHS, and people seeing the response of our doctors, our nurses, the wider health system in terms of care staff. I think people just wanted to show appreciation. The clapping that people used to do on a Thursday night on the doorstep was part of that, showing appreciation. The posters that children were painting and drawing for the living room windows were part of that appreciation. And Tom doing his own thing in his own way, I think showed that kind of Battle of Britain spirit almost, didn't it? And I think he inspired us all, I think.
What are you prepared to do to help the homeless of Oldham?
Well, if I can be political, because I know it's not always okay to do that on some of these kind of group calls. I'm fighting for Labour government because I have no confidence at all that the current government will invest in public services to the level that's needed to address the social problems that lead to homelessness. And I think that a Labour government would do that. So I'm fighting like mad ahead of 2024 to try and get a Labour government in place and change this country for the better. But obviously, we've got a number of years before we get there. And so I'll be doing all I can to make sure that we understand the scale of homelessness, so making sure that every homeless person has a voice and making sure that their voice is heard in Parliament. And so always making sure that representations are made and that we lobby for change where we see it. So, with the campaign that you're doing, with the campaign that Shelter's doing, I think we can work together to continue to raise this issue, both in Parliament, but also in the local press as well. Making sure that locally we're reporting so local people really understand the scale of what's going on in their town.
Thank you for asking the questions there, Kyle. And thank you again, Jim, for some really honest and open answers there. You've certainly not held back. And yeah, go on, Kieran.
Yeah, Jim, I think one of the biggest problems that face homelessness is the stigma of they're just going to spend it on drugs and that. So what's actually being done for the people that are on the streets and are actually on whatever it is, spice, weed? What's actually done to help them get past that?
Well, I've got to be honest. I keep saying I've got to be honest. I haven't been honest. The point I would raise is it does feel to me as though we are losing our compassion as a country. The idea that you look out for people who need help, that you look after your neighbours, that you always look to do the right thing. It feels to me at times, though, the country is becoming more and more selfish, where it's all about our own circumstance and whether we are okay, and not whether, as a society overall, we are collectively doing okay. And I think the culture and the language that gets used sometimes is not helpful. And to be honest, we see it all the time. We see it all about benefit claimants who are often labelled as being undeserving. We see it as towards immigration, where those who are coming into the country quite often fleeing persecution and the risk of death are being treated as though they themselves are the problem. I think there's something about our country where we need to get back our soul and start caring about our fellow human beings a bit more than we do. And I think if we were to do that, then you wouldn't just turn the other cheek. If you're seeing somebody who was struggling on the street, you would take it as your responsibility to do something about it. And I think if you do that, you begin to deal with the stigma. But also, you've got to kind of be honest about where there is an issue. And so if there is an issue, and it, in parts is a significant issue, where drug and alcohol dependence means that people are stuck in a cycle of homelessness because they can't maintain a job, they can't maintain a stable life, they can't maintain a tenancy, then you've got to make sure they get the rehabilitation support that they need to be able to come off the alcohol or the drugs that they're addicted to. And I think without that support, you can't expect that somebody can make that life change. It's a very, very difficult thing to break away from.
Okay, cheers for that.
Yeah, that's all the questions that we have for you, and you've gone above and beyond in answering them. All the questions have been answered really in depth and beyond anything that we could have expected, just from a brief interaction on Twitter to you joining us today. It's been absolutely amazing having you here. I just wanted to see if you had any questions that you might want for our young people while you have them here, and the opportunity just to open up the forum on that and see if you had anything that you'd like to ask either about the programme or about the views on what's happening just before we let you go and get on with the rest of your day, because I know you're definitely busy at the minute, and we appreciate you giving up the time today.
The main thing for me is first of all to thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you. I think any MP will say the same thing, but it's the best bit about this job is when you get to speak to local people about issues that they're passionate about. That's where you get your fuel as a politician to take on campaigns and want to get involved. So, thank you for reaching out. I think the other thing is to bear in mind that when it comes to politics, it's the people who are in charge. Politicians work for you. You elect them. You also have the right to sack them if you don't. I appreciate the work that they're doing as well. That kind of power of democracy for me is really important. So it's absolutely no issue at all for me to take part in this job. It's really important that people in Oldham feel as though they can hold their MP to account. And I'm more than happy to be accessible and to be asked questions on any issue as and when you feel it's needed. I think what I would say is if this is a kind of regular programme that you do, I'm more than happy to make time in the diary, next year as well, or even if you have a campaign that you're taking part in again this year, to make sure that we have a conversation. If it's about a particular issue where you want to get support to kind of go out there and see what it's really like firsthand, or when we get back to normal times, we're more than happy through my office to help coordinate that. So, for instance, if we weren't in lockdown at the moment, I'm sure we could have arranged a visit to the local hostel to meet with a group of people who are homeless, who are willing to talk, and not everybody will be confident to. Those who want to talk, to hear kind of firsthand their life experience and what led them to be homeless in the first place, and also how they perceive the gaps are in the system. So in normal circumstances, we could have arranged that to be supportive of your campaign. But for the future, just bear that in mind that we're here to help.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Jim, and thank you for pledging your support to future programmes as well. It's been absolutely great having you on this morning, and I thank you on behalf of everyone, especially at NCS and the group itself. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here, and just the time and commitment that you've given to Oldham and trying to make it better, as well as tackling issues that we're passionate about, such as homelessness. It's absolutely fantastic, and we think you're doing a great job. So on behalf of the rest of the group, I'd like to thank you for giving up your time. It's been absolutely great seeing you this morning, albeit over an online forum rather than in person, but still, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for pledging your support in the future. That's absolutely brilliant from us, and again, thank you very much.
Great, bye now. Cheers.
Goodbye, Jim.
Cheers.